Anand Malapati. I'm the chair of the US Chess Ethics Committee. I've been in the committee for the past 8 years or so, and this has been a great committee, and it's always busy work. It's just constant revolving work, and as usual, we have been busy this year as well. I would like to all thank you for being on this workshop, and I hope you have something to take away from this. We had 23 cases this year, just about 2 cases more than last year. That means that it's an average of 2 cases per month, and it's just busy all the time. So every few days, there's constant emails between the group members. So of the 23 cases, the 17 has been completed. There are 6 cases which are active as of now. One is awaiting jurisdiction. We just reviewed it last week, and since the committee is working on another case, at least 2 other cases, we usually try to minimize overlaps, and so there's one just awaiting jurisdiction, and one is going through a guilt and a sanction discussion phase. There are 4 cases which are active in the document collection stages, and one is ready to be discussed by the committee. So there's actually 3. This report is a little bit few days old, but there are 3 that are in the document collection phase, and one is we just received it a few days ago. 4 of these cases, 4 of the 23 cases came as an overlap from the previous term. So of those 23 cases, we have categorized the cases into the following case types. The cheating during the tournament play seems to be the most dominant, as expected. There are some cases which are involving the tournament organizers, the staff and the affiliates, which is next in line. There's the rating manipulation and violation of the tournament regulations comes next, and the bad behavior is 2. There are everything else which doesn't fall into the above categories. We try to lump it into a hybrid case involving multiple of those 4. There was one which was not in scope of the ethics committee, and we referred it to the other committees. We didn't even, we just declined jurisdiction and then referred it to the other committees. So of the 17 completed cases, the committee found for the complainant in 11 cases. We declined jurisdiction in 6. There were 2 cases that were appealed to the executive board, and our recommended sanctions were slightly modified or adjusted. There were a total of 7 cases that involved working with other committees, and we always try to, sometimes EB recommends a case to multiple committees depending on whatever the case type is or the case complaint is about. So even if EB does not recommend, there could be some cases where we always refer the case to other committees for further investigation. So there are other committees that are like TDCC rules and FIDE events committees were the ones which we were involved with, and we shared information or they shared information either way. There was at least there are overlaps with the Safe Play Committee. So that's all about the case summary case summary of all the 23 cases that we've been dealing with for the past 1 year or so. As far as communications work, I have something that's important that we need to share, because last 2 years since I took over as the chair, actually we changed a little bit communications wise. Primarily in the past, we have been communicating mainly through emails from the Google Group site, which is private to the members. while the communication was great, through emails, we still were getting responses well. But I thought, the monthly Zoom meetings that we started really worked well, and this really helped speed up some of the cases that were coming in. And recently we created a text group. We don't discuss any of the details within the text group. This one is mainly used as a reminder, like, hey, go and check your email. There is something important, or a reminder saying this. There are a few members that needs to look at the case and vote, or provide details for the details. But that text group is mainly for preliminary information or for reminders. One important thing which we are continuing to do is the case manager approach. We have been doing it for the past 4 years or more, but it started about 4 years ago, and this really helped the chair minimize the load, because it's once you assign the case to a case manager, once the case comes in, and I ask other members in the committee if anybody is interested to take up the case. And I appreciate and thank you all the 4 members who are listed there: Hal, Harold, Rob, and Bob Greer, for the time and effort, because they all stepped up this year to work their cases. Hal and Harold have had multiple cases as case managers, but this is really helpful to distribute the load and give some free time for the chairperson. And this is a great approach, and I really thank all the case managers for stepping up and sharing the load. The goal of the committee is for each and every member to really participate in the discussions. We have sometimes the members are always busy with tournaments or other personal obligations, and it's just not always possible for them to participate in discussions or even at least the voting part. We keep enforcing all the members to check their emails every couple of days. Not always that we get a response within a few days, because once a case is posted, we expect something returned back within the next 2-3 days. Otherwise, the load keep piling up, and it's not good for the committee. So we do our best, and every member has participated well. So the goal of the committee is for every member to really participate in not only the discussion, not only the voting, but the discussions and the analysis when a case comes in. Okay, so the previous year, at US 2022, US Open 2024, we had one new member who joined the committee, Steve Lampkin. 2 of the members stepped out, David Day and Randy Hoff. They stepped out. This was approved at the previous delegates meeting. As far as this year's term, we recently had communications with the committee, and we would like to keep the committee strength somewhere around 12 members. Right now we are at 13, and 12 is an ideal number to control the case load and making sure that every member is involved in this process. So, but we didn't have an option, but we had to increase it by 14. With 13 members, I'll be stepping out. So there'll be 2 new members who will be adding into the committee. We went through a nomination process. We had 4 candidates who expressed interest. Most of the committee members, they decided these 2 members, Mike Hoffer, who is an outgoing executive board member, and he has prior experience with the ethics committee, and having him on the ethics committee would be an excellent addition to bring experience back into this committee.
Hey, Anand, just make one correction. I've never been an ethics committee member. I've done a lot of work with the ethics committee because my position on the executive board, but I've never been a member of the ethics committee.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, Mike. I thought you were before. I didn't know that. Okay, I'll make the
I think you've been the liaison, right?
Yeah, pretty much the whole time I've been on the executive board for like 9 years.
Well, I guess that problem is about to be fixed in less than 2 weeks. So congratulations or condolences.
Yes, sir. For some reason, I thought you were in the committee before I came on board. I came on board in 2017, and I thought you were on the board. You were on the committee at that time. But, well, you still bring a great expertise to the committee because you know a lot of things that's going on in the committee, and having that relationship with the executive board responsibilities is a great addition. And Louis Reed was another candidate that was nominated. I think he's on the call. So he is another candidate that's been strongly recommended by some of the committee members. All of the current members, who are 12 of them, excluding me, they wanted to stay back in the committee and continue the excellent work. Okay, so once we drop and add those 2 members, drop 1 member, our total committee will be 14 members, and we are proposing this to the delegates next week. I really wanted to thank all the members who worked and and served their time in during this year. And my personal thanks to Hal, because this is my first time as a chair of this committee for the past 2 years, and he was really a great mentor. Hal, thank you so much for your guidance during the entire 2 years, and I really enjoyed it, and this was great. And I can't express it in words, but it's excellent work. Thanks, Hal. So with that, I'm opening up the floor for questions. But before I open up floor for any questions or discussions, Hal has something to talk about procedural issues and procedural stuff within the committee, how the committee cases work. Hal, you have it now.
Yeah, well, I'm not really good at this screen sharing thing. I'll try that in a moment. But what I thought I would do is show you a document that we have about how we run the cases internally. We've handed this out every year at the workshop, but there may be some people in this meeting who have not seen it. So I'll show that to you, and we'll just briefly run through the elements of it. All right, let me just see if I can.
I think I found the document. This is one. Let me see if I can put it in. And this was from 2022. So let's see if I
yes, can that 2022. It's the last revision.
Okay, let's see. This is. Okay, stuck. Give me 1 sec.
I'm still seeing your previous screen, so there we go.
I'm just coming up now.
Okay.
Is this the right one?
Yes, that's the correct one. So the first thing to know that is that the work of the committee is governed by these 2 documents, the Code of Ethics and the Executive Board Standards of Conduct. This document is adopted procedures by the committee internally. They're not part of the code, and all of these have been adopted by simple majority vote and can be modified or abolished in the same way. For example, as Anand has told you, he served as chair for the last 2 years. So number 2 on this list, we as a committee voted to set that aside so that he could serve for a second year. We have candidates in the pipeline to take over as chair, but they allowed us how they needed another year's seasoning before they were ready to do that. So we convinced Anand to stay on for another year. So just running through these, you can see the first one is fairly obvious, that we don't discuss ethics committee cases in public. We can't prevent parties to cases from making public comments. We don't approve of that, but we can't stop it, and we don't consider that itself to be a code violation. So that does sometimes happen, but we don't comment ourselves. Now, number 3 on this explains the basic procedure, how the case is run. Unlike some of the other committees, which have only a 2-step process, that is, you get a complaint and the committee writes to the person who's on the other end of it and asks for their response, and they make a decision. We have a 4-stage process where each side gets 2 chances to make their case as a complaint, and there's a response, and then the original complainant gets to make a rebuttal, and then the accused party gets the last word. And when all those documents are collected, then the committee reads through them and makes a decision. So everything in the committee is handled by formal counted votes. We have a vote for jurisdiction, and we have a kind of a general rule that you see here that we accept if it looks like if the charges, if true, would be a code violation. And we recently added this wording at the end of this sentence because we had at least one case where it was just plainly obvious that there couldn't possibly be any success, even though technically the charges could have been a code violation. So, we maintain some discretion there. So you can see that, there the 4-stage procedure laid out. And if you go down to number 4, you see how it works. There's when the complaint comes in, when it comes to our committee, the accused party gets 30 days for the initial response. And then after that, for the subsequent 2 stages, it's 14 days each. And it's probably lower down, but what happens is at the start, the office will attempt to contact the accused party, that is once we've accepted jurisdiction, by email and ask if they're willing to communicate using that method. They're within their rights to ask to communicate by US mail if they want. But in recent years, that has never happened. And if within 7 days they say, okay, fine, let's do this by email, then the office provides them with a deadline for their 30 days, and the whole thing moves forward. So you can see here numbers 6, 7, and 8 have been adopted over the years, in response to various things that came up. We had it was in the late 1990s. I guess no one on the committee would remember this except me. An inquiry came in from a prominent chess politician, which we interpreted to be a fishing expedition to see what might achieve jurisdiction acceptance from us. And so we passed this rule that we don't provide any interpretations of code language outside of the case. And number 7, for a long time, we didn't accept complaints against organizations. We had several complaints involving state chapters, and we required the complaining parties to name individually all the persons on the boards of directors that they wanted notified. But then later, at one of our workshops, there was a discussion in which it was strongly recommended that we do accept complaints against organizations, and indeed we did decide to adopt that. And then number 8 is one that's also been around for a long time. We put a lot of work into these cases, and listing minority views on a case only would likely result in extra work for the executive board, because they would take minority views as a possible avenue of appeal, and just make everything far more complicated. So the decision letters, only have the majority view, and we do report vote counts, but do not identify who votes in which way, because then you have political considerations that might come into play. Also, you can see number 11, the actual wording of the decision letters is also subject to a vote. This was in effect when I left the committee in 2007, and when I returned in 2015, I discovered that it had lapsed, and I thought it was a really important thing that the letters also receive a vote of confidence. So we resumed that. Number 12, that's the thing about email contact, which I mentioned before. Number 13 is pretty much self-explanatory. Now, number 14, again, came about because of one of our cases in which an argument we made that we didn't handle this particular case in a very good way. And there was a dispute about this at the delegates meeting. And in the end, there was a compromise. We agreed to establish this position on the committee of ombudsman who would handle cases where the accused party was below 13 years of age. And that has worked very well. The first time it was employed, it did not go well, but we learned from that. Now, typically when we have such a case, a member of the executive board, and this has frequently been Mike Hoffbauer over the last few years, will make the first contact with the parents. So that they're not just hearing from some random person they've never heard of before. They're hearing from someone official who wants to set up a conference between the parents and the ombudsman from the committee. So, we have that proposal that we adopted, and number 15 is the most recent to be adopted. We had quite a spirited debate about this, because previously it was very simple. If you're not a member of US Chess, we're not involved. But the proponents of this said that offending parties shouldn't be allowed to escape the consequences of their action just by letting their membership lapse. So we adopted this, that we could still take the case if the person was a member at the time of the incident involved. These are all the ones that are on the list. I guess technically we should add to this the whole case manager thing. I can tell you that came to be adopted also as a suggestion from Mike Hoffbauer. The 2018 to 19 term of the committee was absolutely brutal. That was before we adopted that. And the policy is that was at that time, the chair runs all the cases and is responsible for writing the first draft of all the letters. And that was just a really heavy workload. And Mike suggested this idea, and we quickly adopted it, and it has worked very well. Having a team of 3 or 4 people who have the time and are willing to devote it to running these cases really reduces the workload on the chair. It's still not easy being chair, as Anand has certainly discussed, because almost half the cases we get, the parties make some kind of inquiry to the office about procedures or something else. And we have, the committee liaison at the office, formerly Judy Meisner and now Melinda Matthews, we want to keep the workload on them to a minimum. And so I very strongly have urged all the case managers and chairs, whenever inquiry like that comes in, don't just say to Melinda, oh, send X, Y, or Z. You write out a complete message and send it into to Melinda and say, send them this. So that all she has to do is paste it in and send it off to reduce the workload on her to an absolute minimum. So that's pretty much how all the cases work. And I think now maybe it might be a time to entertain questions.
So, Hal, I just want to add one more actually. So, going back to the Ombudsman one, I had to add this to report. We did not have any cases in this term which deals with an ombudsman. So, Martha Underwood is our ombudsman for this year, and Rob Gaddy is the backup. But we did not have any cases that involved the ombudsman this year. Just want to provide that update.
The youngest respondent we had this year, I think, was age 14, which is above the cutoff.
Okay. So we are open for questions.
Yeah, I've got my hand up there, so I'll go ahead and go first. The something that I wanted to make you guys aware of that we have been discussing in the executive boards, this is kind of a handoff to Anand as well, is there have been cases where the ethics committee has recommended revocation or suspension of a membership. And the case, we had the recommendation, we had all the information, but one or more other committees were still working some other aspect of the case. So nothing was being acted on while we waited on the rest of the case to get adjudicated. And what the executive board wants to do, and will probably introduce something through the bylaws committee to get it put into the the bylaws, is that when and I've already discussed this, Renee and I have already discussed this with Creighton, the lawyer, and so it stands up, is that when a membership is revoked, is recommended by the ethics committee for revocation or suspension for any period beyond 6 months or more, that the suspension or revocation will go into effect immediately upon the executive board adjudicating the recommendation, as opposed to waiting for 45 other things to happen. So that, and then it would start the appeal process right then on the revocation or suspension of the membership. Because we had several cases this year where, players were playing in tournaments and they shouldn't have been, because the ethics committee had recommended they be suspended, but yet because there was still something tied up somewhere in one of the other committees, it had never been enacted upon by the executive board. In the executive board, we kind of got ourselves into that own trap about 3 or 4 years ago, because what we were seeing was a case comes in, we adjudicate it, it gets a 30-day appeal. Then the rules part of the case comes in, we get 30 days, another appeal. Then the TDCC piece comes in, we get 30 days and another appeal, and all on the same case, which was a waste of the executive board's time. So we said, we're going to wait till everything's adjudicated before And that made sense at that time, but we did not realize the second order impact, which was the result of, which is what I just described. The other thing that the executive board is now doing is the bylaws specifically specify that a member gets a 30-day appeal period when their membership, or a member or an affiliate get the 30-day appeal when their membership is suspended or revoked. That's when they get 30 days to appeal. So if somebody gets, if a tournament director, if we revoke a tournament director certification, or TDCC says, take it away for 10 years and the executive board agrees with it or reduces it to 5 years or whatever, that does not affect the membership. So those rulings from the executive board now come out and say, this person's tournament director certification is suspended for 3 years effective date X until date Y. This decision is final and not appealable. So we put that language into the rulings so that it's clear that there is no appeal of those. It's over with and it's done, because the only thing that is appealable is the revocation of membership or the suspension of membership in accordance with the bylaws. So Anand, y'all will get to, we'll work that at the delegates meeting and probably introduce something in the bylaws committee meeting so that it becomes a motion on the floor to get this put into effect, because the couple of cases where this came out this year were pretty damaging from a US chess public relations perspective, because players are out there saying, why is this person even playing in this tournament because of what he or she did at this other tournament? They shouldn't even be playing chess anymore. They should be thrown out, all that kind of stuff. And it was just bad press. And when you go back and look at the details, it's just because, because we had this procedure to wait until the case was fully adjudicated before anything was done. And it was a problem.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think that's definitely a good move forward, actually.
And if I may, there's a question in the chat I could address.
Sure, go ahead.
Right. Frank Delbonis is asking, the relationship between our committee and safe play cases, and this is a little tricky. We have had cases which had safe play elements, but the case came to us directly. In the past, before the whole safe play thing, we had cases from decades past in which everything was kind of lumped under the heading of bad behavior. And we dealt with some cases back then where the behavior involved would now probably fall under the safe play guidelines. Now it's a little tricky. The safe play complaint process is supposed to be separate from the ethics process. However, there is a provision in the safe play document that an ethics complaint can also be filed. And as the best I can recall, we have not yet had any instance in which something which completely went through the safe play process first was then sent to our committee. We've only had cases that came directly to us, which may have had some elements which you would say were safe play related. And some of those, we were told that a separate safe play complaint had been filed, but the way it works is they have their own confidentiality, the safe play personnel. So we're not informed of whatever they do until we, maybe see it on the sanctions list. We do our best, not necessarily to step on the toes of the people who are running that. So we may in the future refer some elements to the people running those if it comes up.
I'd say that I think between the practices or what has occurred in the past, combined with the attention to detail by the executive director and the executive board, that we've got a pretty good handle on that now. so that when a case comes in, like we had one we were just looking at this past week, where when I read it, is this ethics or is this bullying? And then so we ask our safe play expert to make a ruling from her level about whether any of this is really safe play or not. And then she does an investigation, and if she uncovers that it is safe play, then it stays in that lane. But if there are matters that would need to be passed to ethics, we know then what to pass, as opposed to having, the fact that, player A slapped player B go into both ethics and safe play, which is kind of, silly. So, but I think we've got a, much better control on that now as an organization because of the review processes that happen up front. And all the members on the call may not be aware, but whenever every complaint that comes into the office comes to the executive board, specifically, there are 4 members of the executive board that act as a complaint review subcommittee, and they look at the allegation itself. We don't look at the supporting statements, whether or not they add up and whether this contradicts. We don't look at any of that. All we look at is the allegation and whether that allegation should be looked at by committee A, B, C, or D, or committees A and B, with A first and then B, or we direct A to cooperate with B on the review. But that's what we do in the executive board. So every complaint that comes into the organization, the executive director gets them in front of the executive board so that, we can get them pointed in the right direction. And there's 4 of us on the executive board that, that look at those complaints when they come in, so that we have, a pretty decent opinion. It's not just like me and Dave Hayter, the only guys that look at it. There's Vish, myself, Kevin, and Dave look at them right now, and that'll of course change when things change over with the executive board. But the same process will continue in effect.
Hey guys, 2 things. One is, want to thank you all for, this is a really important committee. The work you do is incredibly important, is incredibly thorough, is incredibly tough, and I want to send my thanks and my regards. One thing I want the committee to think about is, hopefully we continue to scale the org and continue to keep growing our membership. I have a concern that cheating is likely to increase and not decrease over time. And I think the question is, what does an ethics committee look like in a universe where we're fielding 50 cases a year, right? How do we need to support that, whether it's more manpower, better processes, systems? I think things like that are the things that keep me up at night as a board member in terms of as we scale, because this is a very critical function of one that requires a lot of thorough, detailed work, and you all do not scale linearly. And so that's the thing I think we should keep an eye on over the next few years.
Yeah, thanks, John. I want to just add to that actually. So I would say that with the cheating incidents being one of the most prominent one, I don't know if it's feasible or not, if the organization can be provided a way of wanting players, or who are in a consistent way, providing instructions of what is a best practice in the field. I think that would help, specifically at the nationals, because nationals involves kids, but we can't just want players because of legal issues. So something must be out there in the procedures outlined to see what we can do uniform across the board, because that could eliminate a lot of these cheating incidents. And that I would say that that's going to be the most challenging going forward, with different means of technical ways they could cheat. There are different methodologies they could use.
If I may, at the Scholastic Council workshop, there was a good deal of discussion about how tricky it was to deal with the issue of wanding. And I put into the chat, I didn't get any response to it, But we had a case this year in which someone employed a handheld device that is on the tournament director's staff, which was not a wand. It was the thing that detected electromagnetic signatures. And all he had to do was walk down the rows of chessboards on, the aisles. And if he passed by anyone who had an active electronic, the device would trigger. And that was how he discovered that the person who was eventually accused was using a phone, because he detected and then he approached this player, interrupted the game, and arranged for a physical search. But as a first step, this kind of device is a lot less intrusive than a wand. I don't know what the cost is, but this guy bought one. So,
Is there any way we could find out what kind of device that was?
I think it's mentioned in the case packet. I don't remember the name of the case now, but I could find it.
Okay, because I'm considering that.
And just something I thought of about the issue of workload, something ethics and maybe other committees that deal with complaints should maybe consider is, instead of the full committee considering it, maybe having a subcommittee, multiple subcommittees that are maybe different kind of areas. Like maybe you have a cheating subcommittee, and maybe you have a committee to deal with some other ethics issues, and kind of have more division of labor, because every case probably doesn't need 12 people looking at it.
Well,
Are there any thoughts on that?
I don't know. The issue with that is that we have a very wide range of experience and people on the board. And if we divide ourselves into smaller groups, we're denying access, to some of the committee members who may have some valuable input. I think we have, if I remember correctly, 9 NTDs on the committee, and maybe 5 of those are also international arbiters, and several of them are among the most active directors in the country. And so there isn't much that all these folks haven't seen at one time or another, and their input is really valuable. Before I forget, I want to raise one other issue. I was discussing with another member of the committee, Charles Hatherill, who I believe is here, a separate issue, and he raised an interesting possibility that I would toss out, that maybe not all of the good faith deposit should be returned, even if we find for the complaining party. As right now, it's $50. That maybe on any complaint, $10 gets retained by the US Chess office to help cover administrative costs, to make things a little fairer. So I throw that out as a possibility.
I can see that making sense. If that is decided to be done, it probably should be all the committees uniformly should do that, rather than just being ethics that does that. But there is certainly a cost to the office, at least in staff time, to manage the complaints. So it seems fair.
My understanding is of all of it is that the executive director, who already has authority to set the amount of the fee, may also have authority to implement this without our changing the code or the bylaws. But that would have to be discussed.
The reason I asked, this is Charles. The reason I brought that up is, being on several of the committees, most of the times the committee members vote to return the deposit. and the expense of returning the money. If it's how it's processed, it takes time for each member to go through on US Chess and take staff time. Not only does it that, but the time it takes the individual to write all the emails, not only for our committee, but for all the other committees. And that, to me, it makes sense to get something back to support us, not us, but US Chess.
Of course, the argument could be made that player dues funds the US Chess office to perform functions such as that. So I can see both sides of it.
Or maybe in some cases where you find that there is reason for sanctions, part of the sanction could be you have to pay a fine to keep your membership, perhaps. That could help pay for the costs of it.
Yeah, fining members monetarily has never been part of the process.
Right. I mean, and we've had parties who were sanctioned who basically stole thousands of dollars in prize money. And there was nothing that we could do about getting that money back. I mean, it's simply not within our authority. All we can do is, revoke the membership.
Although if you decide to suspend a membership, you could say that the suspension will not be lifted until the fine is paid, or restitution, perhaps. I mean, if someone steals prize money, for example, and you decide not to revoke them, you probably shouldn't let them play in their tournament until they make that right.
Well, it kind of adds some complications. You could end up having to keep a list of these requirements for years at a time. We kind of prefer just to keep things simple. We do what's in the code and then we're done.
Easiest thing to do is have somebody check with US Chess and see what it costs us to refund the money. If it costs us $5 to refund the money, then we charge them $5, because normally there's a credit card fee processing that doesn't include the membership.
Well,
Any other questions?
And I sent you a chat.
Or chat?
Yeah, direct.
I saw it. Oh, okay. I can post it to everybody. So Louis sent this because I think he has probably used this in the past. If anybody needs this device. I guess it's been quite, I hope nobody wants to ask any more questions.
Yeah, we don't have no crazy cases coming before the delegates this year. So, we may be looking at one and done day on Saturday.
Don't jinx yourself.
Mike, you'll be on the committee if it's approved, so you have it.
So I guess he's eager to get off the executive board as quickly as possible. That's probably it.
No, it's just experience.
I know. But yeah, the agenda is a lot less than last year, that's for sure.
Or Hal or Anand, were there any delegates motions that you guys needed to look at and talk about in particular, or y'all did that right before I jumped on?
No, I don't have any, unless Hal has any. Hal, do you have any?
No, not really. There's the issue that you and I discussed privately.
Right.
But that's going to be handled in a different way, as everyone will discover at the delegates meeting.
Sure. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
One thing I will ask that when you went over the document, you mentioned sometimes the ethics committee takes a complaint and gets an organization, like an affiliate. How often does that happen?
fairly often in the past couple of years, we had two different complaints involved with the whole Rhode Island situation. And one of those, we just declined jurisdiction because the whole matter was already on the delegates' agenda. We just referred it to the delegates. And the other one, we also declined jurisdiction on it. I'm pretty sure yes, we've declined it. It was just what we viewed as a transparent attempt to employ the committee for political ends.
On the other hand, we do have one active case in document collection that has an affiliate involved.
Yes.
Which is a valid thing in my opinion. So.
It does happen on occasion that we get such complaints. And when the affiliate is named, usually, if it's not a state chapter, there's a single individual who's the owner of that affiliate, and the office just notifies the person who's the owner of the affiliate to respond on the affiliate's behalf. If in the case of a state chapter, I think what I recall is mostly specific officers of the affiliate of the state chapter were named, so we didn't need to pick somebody to notify. But that's always an issue. Who gets notified?
I have one other question, and this may be more with Hal instead of Anand, but what's the rationale for only involving the ombudsman when the player is 13 or under, as opposed to the player is a minor? Like for example, with safe play, if the player's a minor, the parents have to be involved. At the age of a minor. So it seems inconsistent that, if a 15-year-old is accused of cheating, we're just going to deal with the kid and not get the parents involved when that's the roof that kid lives under.
Well, I can certainly explain all that. You must recall that this came about as a result of a case that we had. And, this just, it wasn't normal for us to be told anything about the potential respondents. So I can't speak for everyone on the committee, but I had no idea how old this particular respondent was. And it turned out he was a very young child. He was like 8 years old. And we had no idea, and we went through the whole thing and reached a decision. And there were a lot of people who thought it was a horrible decision that we reached. And so a motion was placed on the delegates' agenda to transfer all cases for anyone below 18 years of age to the Scholastic Council. And none of us on the committee thought that was a very good idea at all. And there were some negotiations, and in the end, we reached a compromise with the sponsor of that motion, under which we would use age 13 as the cutoff, and we would appoint a special person who would speak to the parents. And the original, what's the word I'm looking for? The original concept was that the ombudsman might try to reach an informal disciplinary arrangement with the parents if the evidence was strong and they could be convinced that the charges were valid, and that would then be nothing on the record of the minor, that the parents would take charge of keeping the player out of tournaments for a certain period of time. Now, as it happened, more recently, it turned out that put an unusual burden on the office to try to keep records of that. So we had to change things a little bit. The ombudsman still talks to the parents, but if a disciplinary agreement is reached, it will in fact appear on the if the player is supposed not to play for a while, it will appear as an actual suspension in the MSA. The only difference being at the end of the suspension, the record would be expunged. But given the number of possible cases, it was deemed that you have to just keep the record automatically when these agreements take place. So I suppose you could say that maybe the wording of this needs to be revised a little to reflect that.
Well, it's just the age.
That's why we have
That's all.
13.
Just my only piece is just the age of 13, as opposed to 18.
Well, that was the compromise we reached.
Huh?
That was the compromise that we reached.
No, I got it, but it can be. I think it needs to be made consistent with the practice throughout the rest of US chess, especially with the safe play stuff.
Well, I know there's some 17, 17-year-olds where it would seem more appropriate to stay here. I mean, I understand the desire for consistency, but that's.
Well, I just look at it as as a parent. If my 17 or 18-year-old is being disciplined by someone other than me, I have a right to know. That's.
Well, I think most times when you have 15, 16-year-olds, the parents are on the emails or writing the emails for the kid anyway.
Yes, exactly so. I can't recall that we've ever had a case involving a player under age 21 where that party wrote all of the responses. Parents have always been involved.
So I kind of missed, maybe I missed part of that. So when is it that the MSA gets updated to say suspended member, and when does it not get updated to say suspended member?
The executive board has to pass has to vote on it and pass it, and then if there's an appeal, it has to go finish the appeal process.
Right, but if they do get suspended, is there an age they don't show it?
No, it still shows up.
No, it still shows up as suspended.
It's just
The only thing it doesn't get shown for minors is the name on the page on the website for US Chess that shows who are the suspended and revoked membership players. That their names don't show up if they're a minor.
Right. On the player's MSA, it's what should still show suspended, right?
Yeah, or non-member, one or the other. Because if it's revoked, he becomes non-member. what's confusing to a tournament director sometimes is if I see non-member, I may think, oh, well, just pay your dues and you're back up to speed again.
Yep.
Because I may not know that there was an ethics case behind it. And that was one of the things we've talked about in the executive board is that in our new data system that we have the ability for it to say revoked, or permanently revoked and not just suspended.